Hello, everybody, and welcome to Kick Conflict to the Curb, the place that growth minded professionals come to learn the latest strategies on how to deal with bullies, narcissists, micromanagers, and to make sure that their employees feel heard, understand, and that they belong. I'm your host, Joyce Weiss, communication coach and queen of conflict resolution. And clients come to me to reduce stress and improve their relationships. So you may ask, how do they do that? They transform from not knowing how to start a tough conversation all the way to feeling confident using their voice without losing their cool. Well, I'm thrilled to have a engaging conversation with our guest who's going to talk to us about forgiveness. So I would like to introduce you to Andrea Flack-Wetherald. Andrea Flack-Wetherald is the author of The Funny Thing About Forgiveness: What Every Leader Needs to Know About Improv, Culture, and the World's Least Favorite F Word. She holds a degree in social work. Andrea performed comedy in Pittsburgh and New York City and has developed mindful improv thinking, a framework for self-healing and engaging in vulnerable conversations. Her book is an Amazon #1 bestseller, a 3-time recipient of 5-star critical reviews from readers' favorite, and earned advanced praise from leaders at Google, Fred Rogers Productions, Mattingly Solutions, and others. Here's a fun fact about Andrea. She never broke a bone in her body until this past year, in which she broke the same foot twice. Welcome to the show, Andrea.
Thank you so much for having me. That is the best intro anyone has ever done for me. Thank you.
Well, let's just stop now. You just made my day. Thank you very much. Well, in full disclosure, which I believe in being authentic, the one thing I don't like is introducing people reading something because I'll mispronounce a name. So I do this ahead of time, and my guests love it. And I usually only take two takes anyway. So I needed to tell you that,
Good for
viewers,
you. You're a natural.
well, yeah, but don't we need to figure out what to make our life a little easier, including forgiveness. So, okay, Andrea, I'm going to go to your book, The Funny Thing About Forgiveness. And I'm going to read this to start us off. Confrontation will be what you let it be. So let it be helpful. You will find what you're looking for. So look for hope. You'll get what you expect. So expect a pinata instead of a crap circus. I love that line. So tell us more about that, please.
Okay, so the pinata analogy came to me years ago, and it has been helping me so much to embrace conflict differently. So often we have really disgusting or violent imagery. We talk about the you know what hitting the fan or an eruption or explosion. So I encourage people instead of that to say, to think about it like a pinata. So a pinata is also something that has been hanging over our heads. It is the recipient of some focused and forceful momentum. It bursts open and then gifts fall from the sky. And that is exactly what is happening with confrontation as well. Even if it feels uncomfortable, there are gifts falling from the sky, and it's up to us to notice them. And of course, it's not the same thing as candy or a, prize, but it's like a process that's not working gets our attention. Somebody who needs to be heard speaks up. And these things are gifts because it helps us get closer to who we want to be as people, as leaders, and as companies.
I love it. You see, viewers, why we have Andrea as our special guest today? Because forgiveness is so hard for people, including me at times. And after I read your book, I'm going to be giving this. I don't want you to say your book. I'm going to say it again. The funny thing about forgiveness is that it helped me realize, forget what happened in the past. If it's huge, you're not going to forget it, but figure out how you can move forward. So I want to thank you for giving me the gift, and I'm going to be sharing this on social networking with a lot of your quotes. So
Thank
the
you so much.
you're welcome so much. So the topic for today that we said on social media: why is forgiveness the most important leadership skill? Tell us.
Yeah. So forgiveness is the most important leadership skill because everything else that matters for leadership, listening well, holding a bold vision, balancing accountability without micromanaging, being that bearer of the vision for where the company can go and what the culture can feel like. Everything else, all of those leadership skills, your ability to do them consistently, do them how you mean to do them, hinges upon whether or not you have forgiven yourself for getting it wrong, forgiven your parents, forgiven past templates of poor leadership. Why? The reason is that when you are in a place of unforgiveness, you are distracted by those resentments, by those shame stories. Somebody says something, it hits you the wrong way, and you start thinking, I got to prove that I'm not just like my mom. I got to prove that I'm just not like my worst boss or whatever it is. So you start manipulating these conversations into opportunities for you to prove something about yourself instead of listening to the person who is speaking to you and figuring out what they need, what they're trying to communicate to you. And so, if you want to be able to lead your team, your life, your family, your nonprofit, whatever it is, if you want to be able to lead without those distractions of shame and fear and resentment, you have to be proactive about the work of forgiveness, of big and small things, by the way. We can touch on that or not if you want to.
Oh, absolutely. And before we even talk about the big and small things, we are going to touch upon that. Um, there are people here who are leaders. I mean, many times I get human resource professionals. So if you're a leader, if people who are watching are leaders, how could they? I'm going to put you on the spot here, but I know you can take it because I read your book. How can they take what you just said, why forgiveness is the most important leadership skill, and coach their employees to
Mm.
to forgive Sue, who threw her under the bus at the last meeting or something like that? Your thoughts, please.
Yeah, thank you. That is such a wonderful question. I think coaching Sue or coaching someone else to forgive Sue
Yeah.
um, can only happen if there is also mechanisms in place for appropriate accountability. One of the major hangups people have about forgiveness is the fear that if they forgive someone, then they're being let off the hook. It depends on what's gone on with Sue. If Sue has said something that is racist or said like if whatever has happened with Sue, there needs to be appropriate boundaries or consequences commensurate with whatever it is that's happened. And so for leaders who are culture stakeholders in the company
Mhm.
and people who have the actual authority to affect change, not everybody has that in a company. Everybody might be passionate about seeing things change, but not everybody has the power to change the rules, or to
Mhm.
actually put accountability in place. And so if you're a leader, you do have that accountability. So it's important for you to make sure that you're having your scene partners back. That's a big theme in improv, by making sure if Pam or whoever needs to forgive Sue, that Pam understands, I have your back. I'm going to make sure that this is a safe place for you. Whatever needs to happen with Sue, we're going to make sure that you know that you are valued here at this company.
Wow. So you use the A word, accountability. Gee whiz. A lot of people who aren't leaders watching this show now or on their own time, there are some leaders that aren't accountable. They don't have the skills to coach the Pams and the Sues in the world. If it's a comment that not just inappropriate, but I'm talking about racist or religious or any of those things that just can't go on anymore. in the workplace, they have to learn how to have these skills. That's why reading your book could help them just switch their mind that, oh no, I'm just not gonna say anything, put it under, yeah, they'll figure it out on their own. No, no, no. It's up to them. So
Thank you for saying that.
yes.
That's such an important takeaway. And one of the things in the book that I encourage people to do, I dedicated one chapter to this idea of motivational interviewing and teaching the trans theoretical model of behavior change. These are things I was fortunate to learn about as a social worker, learning how do people attempt change and how do we support them, in a way that their change attempt can be successful. I really encourage, especially HR leaders, to learn more about that. There are all kinds of resources broadly available on the internet to learn about motivational interviewing. But I hope that people will do that because it is a very powerful, very efficacious tool for supporting someone, helping them find their own motivation to do better and to grow into a more loving version of themselves, really is what we're talking about, even though companies might not use those terms. But really, it's like a healthier, stronger, more productive version of themselves, But we can't strong arm. Like what social scientists understand now about change is that people don't do it because there's been the right ultimatums or whatever. It really has to be helping them tap in to their desire to make that change.
Okay, it's like we're doing a dance here. We're each leading each other. Well, I was going to bring this up if and when it came up, and let's do
Okay,
it right in
perfect.
the middle of the interview. As leaders, we can begin to see that our job is not to ask our team members to change who they are, a daunting task for even the most self aware. However, we can invite our team members to grow into more of who they are. This is a doable ask and one that is achieved through confrontation and accountability. My gosh, did leaders, everyone, what about moms, dads, wives, husbands, loved one, whatever? We can't change people. And I'm going to get married to Joe because I want to change him. It ain't going to be a good marriage.
Right.
So it's who they can become. Tell us, you could see I sort of, whenever I can't see my veins. Sorry. Whenever my veins stick out when I'm wearing, you can see this was a hot button for me when I read this. So she's got to talk more. Tell us more about that.
Absolutely. In addition to the fact that it's hurtful to be like, change all of who you are so that you can be good enough to be in my life or be a part of this team. It's also just not realistic. And it can also be so discouraging because we are all smart people who know that you can't change someone,
Yes.
but that doesn't mean that behavior change is not possible. And further than that and deeper than that, it's also not necessary. I truly believe, and I know that this is contentious and some people will disagree, and that's okay. It's safe not to agree about everything. But I deeply believe that at our core, we are love. We want to be loved. We want to love other people. And time, life experience, tragedy, different things shape and build on top of that core. Fear, resentment, bias, etc. And then it's easy to see those things in someone else and be like, ugh, I know what kind of person I'm dealing with here. And then what we're telling ourselves is until they can learn how to not be that kind of person, then there's no room here. There's no possibility for growth. But if you can go with me into this place of believing behind that belief, behind that hurtful behavior is a person that wants to love and wants to be loved. How can I help them tap into that more than being tapped into the fear and whatever else that they're believing? That's the powerful question. That's the question that helps us find a way forward with our scene partner.
And I'm just going to be like a bridge to what you said, to like if it's the next page in your book. As a coach, I help my clients understand that when they are having a conversation, when they're not forgiving someone and they've got all this anger, stop for a moment and think, what lesson can I learn from this? Instead of, like you said, bringing up the fear, even the hates, the God, why can't they be me? Well, first of all, we can't put our heads on anybody else's shoulders, and we really shouldn't do that either. Well, what is the lesson? Is that part of your forgiveness philosophy too? Because I know you go internally, and I'm gonna. That's one of my questions um, about internal forgiveness. But is that learning lessons from this? Tell me what you think about that, or don't you agree with what Joyce Weiss just said, Andrea?
No, absolutely. It sounds like you're sharing something that's deeply in alignment with one of the core 5 mindful improv skills you may recall me sharing at the beginning of the book, which is gift orientation. So in improv, we're taught to receive anything that happens during the scene as a gift. Don't panic and feel like because somebody came into the scene and maybe they misunderstood for whatever reason, and they made you a train conductor when you thought that you were a carrot farmer, you don't need to panic. You don't need to feel angry at this person and feel like, why don't you listen better? Why you're always doing this?
Mm-hmm.
This is so typical, you know. Instead of that, in improv, we're coached and trained to receive that as a gift. Is there a way that you are a carrot farmer who's a part-time volunteer train conductor and just like rips off the overalls and is like, woo, woo, all right, this is the way that I'm a superhero in this town. I serve so many purposes. Can you find a way? And you can, because your brain is a powerful supercomputer and it loves to solve problems and it loves to make connections. Can you receive that as a gift? Second part of this is you give everything as a gift to the scene. You're not on the sidelines thinking, how can I prove I'm the funniest person on this team so that so and so in the audience notices me? you know, the only reason to open your mouth, the only reason to contribute something is it a gift to the scene? Am I helping the scene get developed in some way? And the reason why what you said reminded me of that is that it's really easy when you walk into a conversation and feel like I've done the work to enter this mindfully. I've done the
Mm-hmm.
work to be understanding. You did the work to be a giant butthead.
Mm-hmm.
Like you are making this hard for me. When you decide and to just commit to gift orientation, you don't miss the gift because of the wrapping paper. You're like, this is happening for me, not to me. This person is helping me realize that we need different screening questions in our interview process. We need different culture standards. We needed a process for this feedback to get run up the flagpole sooner. Otherwise, they wouldn't be shouting at me right now. There was a way that this needed to get released, and there
Mm-hmm.
wasn't. And now this is happening. So there's
Wow.
a gift.
Oh my God, you see that this is not a planned, even though we talk, I always talk to my guests before just to make sure that they have some kind of personality and they know
I'm
that
so glad I passed that sniff
oh,
test
oh,
at the
it's
beginning.
it's tough when you're on this show, and that they understand it's a conversation, not a lecture. We're having a real conversation here, Andrea. So thank you for that. So we are speaking the same language. We don't have to, but we are. So, what kind of things do we often overlook when we think about the need for forgiveness? You brought this up. Small things, not the obvious traumatic things.
Yeah, I think in our culture, we've kind of evolved over time to hold space for each other when something very clearly traumatic happens. Um, and we understand we're going to be impacted by that. Those big things, we're going to be impacted by that. But where we struggle, even for ourselves, is to admit and accept when little things hurt us. When it's really hard to be like, Sue's weird snicker when I said this in the staff
Mm-hmm.
meeting hurt me. It made me feel like she thinks I'm stupid or she thinks I don't belong here or whatever, whatever, whatever. And to be clear, not all of this processing needs to happen in front of other people. Every bit of internal growth does not have to result in an external conversation, confrontation, whatever. It's perfectly fine to learn something about yourself. And, you know, you and I were talking before we went live about how confrontation, the way I teach it, is an opportunity, not an obligation.
Mm-hmm.
But when we allow ourselves to process the little things instead of glazing over them, telling this heartbreaking and unproductive story that adults don't sweat the small stuff,
Mm-hmm.
don't stoop to their level. We have all this shaming language around admitting that our feelings were hurt, as if there's nothing that could be weaker than having a negative feeling, So really for me, when I say work on the small stuff,
Mm-hmm.
I can't believe the number of things I have learned about myself and grown to be a stronger parent, a stronger scene partner to my husband, a stronger leader, and even a stronger writer by really allowing myself to not glaze over when I'm upset about something that feels small, not judge myself and be like,
Mm-hmm.
a grown up wouldn't be worried about that. Well, I am. So what is it about? What is it pointing at? Ooh, this is what it is. Pain is pointing at something that needs our attention. That's why pain exists. It's the whole reason it was invented. So pay attention to what's causing you pain. There's an opportunity for you to learn something that's helpful.
And I'm giving you I'm not standing because I'm hooked to my.
I'd like you to stand. I'd like you to actually stand.
Okay, fine. If my earbuds come out,
It's
so you can see how tall I am. Okay,
You're such a good sport, Joyce.
Hey, I'm asking you the question. You just gave me an order, so you've got the forgiveness expert. So it's that lesson. And I love what you said, because sometimes people come to me and they say, are you going to make me confront everybody? Absolutely not. My kids are always saying to me, Mom, you're looking for trouble. You look for conflict. No, it's always there. But we all have to choose. And this is, I believe, where you were not getting at, but you said, we don't have to talk about everything to people when we get upset. Internally, what is that gift? Either, what am I learning from this? Wow, if I'm silent, what is this telling me about? Am I afraid to speak? Or is it better just not to say anything because this is a jerk and what's the point? And to say, oh, I got to go. Nice talking to you. And then just let it go. So one of the last, well, we'll see, but one of the last questions is that, and I love this one, is so important. Tell us more why you teach people to forgive before the confrontation. This is, I was reading this and I'm telling you, I was standing up and I was going, ooh, this is so different. This is so different. So tell us about this, please.
Yeah, it's about autonomy. It's about knowing that when you do the work of forgiveness, you're not pardoning anybody for anything. You're releasing yourself from the suspicion, the shame, the mental movie, that replays in your head. And so it's important before confrontation that you're walking in open to your scene partner. And when you have a whole lot of ideas about what kind of person you're dealing with, and you're doing the thing, maybe you don't do this, Joyce, but I do this sometimes. Walk ahead of the confrontation, imagining the worst thing they could say, rehearsing the whole thing in my head. When you walk in with forgiveness first, you're saying, I'm open to however this might play out. Maybe this person will be a huge jerk to me, but I will still know that there are endless ways this could work out well. The keys to my emotional freedom and optimism are not in that person's back pocket. So I therefore will not panic style choke the life out of our conversation. I will be able to be present in this moment, listening to what they're saying and responding authentically to that, instead of pulling, a script out of my back pocket. I had planned to say this. Maybe you've seen people do this or done it yourself. I've done it myself. Head into a difficult conversation with a printed out, bullet pointed list of everything I want to say.
Yes.
Bring in a script to an improv party. And
Mm-hmm.
instead, if we can do that work of forgiveness, release our fears, release our self-doubts, and just be present in the moment and allow the conversation to move how it's going to move, then we'll create something that surprises and delights and honors both of us.
And before we go, I mean, it's already been 25 minutes. I mean, this is scary to me. I mean, blink. tell us really briefly about your improv experience and why you relate it to forgiveness. I mean, I read the book. I know your answer, but I need to hear a couple sentences, please, so that people who didn't read your book yet will understand that.
Okay, in a couple sentences, all of life is improv. That's why this applies. All of life is improv. You didn't get a script when you were born. I didn't get a script when I was born.
Nope.
So the same skills that help improv succeed on stage will help us succeed off stage too. And why it relates to forgiveness is that the foundation of improv, yes, and really what we're talking about with yes, and is acceptance and autonomy. I'm accepting what's already been offered and I'm building something on top of it. That's what forgiveness is too, the way I teach it. It's not about erasing anything, not about hiding from anything. It's about accepting what has happened and knowing that you can build whatever you want next.
Thank you. Do you think this
Thank
is
you.
deep enough for you folks? Deep but easy. And matter of fact, I've got your website up there. Please tell people about the funny thing about forgiveness and how they can get their own copy, because it's really good, folks.
Thank you so much, Joyce. I appreciate you. My book is called The Funny Thing About Forgiveness, and it's available on Amazon. Or if you'd like to read with your team of people, you can place a bulk order, which is 50 or more copies from my website directly. So if you go to andbeyondimprov.com and click on book, there's the link to Amazon or the link to order it. And was there something else you asked me to say? I'm sorry, I forgot.
No, well, here, this is your website. So
Yes.
what are they going to find there?
Oh, yes. So you'll find information about what mindful improv thinking is and how I can come to your event if you have a group of heart-centered people that want to learn how to make the world a braver, kinder, safer place using these ideas for your company, your nonprofit, your community movement. I'd love to be involved, so you can reach out to me there.
Thank you. Well, Andrea, this was too fast. You got to come back. Please say
Thank you
yes.
so much. I'd be honored. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you for being a guest. And I appreciate your brain a lot.
Thank you so much. Likewise, Joyce. I
Thanks.
appreciate you.
Thank you. So I sure hope that you enjoyed yourself as much as I did learning from Andrea, because she's so powerful. This is unique, and this is a gift that we can give to ourselves first and then share it with people who we are having issues with. So people say to me, Joyce, what makes you different from all the other communication coaches out there? And I thought about this. And what I do is clients come to me to discover what it's costing them when they don't know how to resolve conflict. Money, relationships, feeling stuck in their career or the relationship, inner peace, being frustrated. These are all important to me. So, all you, and hopefully you too. So, all you need to do is connect with me, either Joyce at joyceweiss.com. And if you want to write your own challenge, let's figure out a time to talk for a 15-minute laser coaching session just to talk about what it's costing you. You can go to LinkedIn. I'd love to connect with you. LinkedIn.com/in/Joyce Weiss. And YouTube. Please connect with me on YouTube and subscribe, where you're going to find over 250 short and longer videos about all the things that we either talked about today or some other things also. So I want to thank you so much for joining us today. I want to thank Andrea for that wonderful interview. And remember, you get what you tolerate.